All right, we're going to talk about some techniques for adding a little pizzazz to your phrasing. Snap, slap, and rake. Sounds kind of racy, but these are all actual techniques that players use. Some use as kind of the core of their sound. And it's not about the notes, it's about how you play the notes. And these are all very valuable techniques, and they add dimension. They really give you a different quality. First one, let's talk about snapping. We've already been doing these, by the way. I've done each of these techniques and mentioned them in passing, but now we're going to focus on them. Snapping literally means getting up under the string with your bare finger and lifting it up. And I'm actually, like with my index finger here, I get under the string, lift it up, and snap it back against the string. High string, for example. Right? Now those are all done with the bare fingers as opposed to with the pick, but I can do them as part of the hybrid picking technique by using my middle or third finger. Right? Now these are especially effective on the low strings because when you get lower down, it brings out the definition. So even though we haven't really concentrated on the lower octave, that'll be coming up soon. That's a way of expressing those notes a little bit more clearly. Now players that use that technique because they use their bare fingers would be like Albert Collins. And these are players you should all be familiar with. If you listen to blues, find these guys, listen to recordings by these guys. It almost doesn't matter which ones, but the more you listen, the more you sort of search them out. And I can also give you tips on that, what to listen to. I should mention I do have lists of songs, and I'll give you links, things that you want to check out. It's a huge part of learning the style. You got to listen. You can't just think of it as a playing thing. It's a listening thing. So Albert Collins played with his bare thumb and the index finger. He used an open tuning, you know, and he would snap the strings all the time, and it just made every note so like important. One of his most famous songs called The Freeze, and it really consists of basically 4 licks, and he just hits each one of them over and over and over again with such intensity. Is captivating. So as simple as that thing is, it's a classic. Gatemouth Brown, his official first name was Clarence, and Gatemouth was a disciple of T-Bone Walker. Now T-Bone played in a more conventional style by our standards. He used a flat pick, but Gatemouth played with bare fingers and used a capo, snapped the strings. Listen to Boogie Uproar by Gatemouth Brown. Just fantastic, wild stuff, and all built off of that string snapping kind of style. Johnny Guitar Watson was kind of a disciple of Gatemouth, and he also played with his bare fingers and did some fantastic, wild stuff. 3 hours past midnight, you know, he's playing on the low string. You know, and just it's so distinctive that it doesn't matter whether the technique is proper or efficient, it just sounds great. And I've mentioned Albert King a number of times. Albert played with his bare finger, thumb and finger, and so when he played the high string, we're going to look in detail at Albert's style very shortly here. I didn't realize for a long time that a lot of that sound came from that snap that happened when the string hit the fret. So lifting it up, snapping it back, and it just makes the note zing, puts a little bit more energy into the front of the amp so that the note stands out more. So those are all examples of snapping strings using bare fingers, and we can use that in the context of hybrid technique as I've demonstrated already. Now slapping, we've also done, a little while back we did something about playing bass riffs, and we played something that sounded like Cold Shot, right, the Stevie Ray Vaughan song. Right? Now the idea there is that it is a pick thing, it's a flat pick thing. And in this case, rather than developing the sound with my picking hand by picking out a single note, isolating it and snapping it, I'm actually hitting all the strings with the pick, and I'm using my fretting hand to isolate the strings. So you can make this into an exercise of sorts. It's actually tricky to play as an exercise, but it's a good way to teach yourself the technique. Play the minor pentatonic scale. We'll start on the 4th string, and play your way through the scale while slapping all 6 strings as hard as you can with the pick. Just a flat out downstroke. Just smash into the strings. And if you've done the muting properly, all you're going to hear is that one note. But it'll sound like the most important note in the universe, you know. So what I've done here is hang my thumb over the top. So I'm isolating the 6th string, or muting it rather. With the tip of my 3rd finger, I'm muting the 5th string deliberately, right? That's not an accident. And then with the side of my index finger and the other fingers, they just sort of lay lightly across the top strings. I take care of those. So there's my A. Now, same thing on woo. I'm playing C on the 3rd string. Now this is tricky because I'm getting higher on the neck, or higher in the strings, and so I've got more room to cover there, more to mute. The thumb is hanging over now and covering the 6th and the 5th strings. The tip of my finger is covering the 4th string, and the side is covering the high strings. Now, it's okay to cheat and aim the pick a little bit more toward the high end. You don't have to hit all 6 strings. But the idea is you want to have the freedom where you don't have to think about it, right? Same thing with the 3rd finger. Tip of the finger isolates the 4th string. Thumb gets those. Side of the finger covers the top one, right? So those 3 notes, right? 2nd string, woo! Now, there's no way I'm going to get my thumb all the way over there. So I'm going to aim the pick a little bit more toward the high strings. Mute the 3rd string. Same thing here, muting the 3rd string with the tip of my finger. And then finally the high string, the high E, I have to be careful as much as I can to hit just the top 2 strings. That's how you make that guitar sound bigger than it really is. It's just intensity. One thing I noticed listening to blues players and especially watching blues players, it's a violent sport. It's a violent sport. You can be gentle, and if you play in a slow blues, for example, we'll talk about that. Hitting the notes very soft, being kind of romantic, in fact. But you get that groove going. Can't hold back, can't be afraid to hit the note. And that's something I've noticed again in a lot of students, is that they're kind of a little bit afraid to hit that note too hard. In your mind, you're saying, I don't know if it's the right note or not, so if I don't hit it so hard, maybe they won't notice. Well, unfortunately, yes, they will notice, and they'll also notice that you're not committed. And it'll just be like, yeah, it's not really happening, you know. So it's better to be strong and wrong in a blues sense, and really commit yourself to the note. And these are ways of kind of ramping up the intensity. Now, along with slapping and snapping, how about the rake? Well, we've done the rake a couple of times. I've done stuff like this. Right? Now, what I'm doing there is I'm muting the strings with any finger that's available. It doesn't really matter which finger you use, but I'm aiming toward a certain note. And this is an upward rake. In other words, I'm dragging the pick up toward the ceiling. And so I'm muting the higher strings, and I'm aiming toward a target, which is in this case E on the 5th string. So I'm thinking about, you know, I'm using that as sort of it sounds like I'm taking a breath before I hit the note. Blanga danga danga, right? And so the upward rake is a rhythmic little accent. I use it all the time in my rhythm parts. It just adds a little snap to the sound. But the technique is actually technically very simple. It's just being able to apply it in the context of the rhythm and not at all costs, right, let any of those open strings come through because it'll just destroy it. So they have to be muted and aim at the specific note that you're trying to reach. That's the upward rake. You hear that in the playing of guys like Otis Rush. I want you to love me. I want you to love me. Right? Big influence on Stevie Ray Vaughan as well as everybody else in the world. Fantastic guitar player. Left-handed, upside down. Now there's another version of the rake which you've also heard, which is this. You definitely, if you've heard B.B. King, you've heard, right, that. And what that is isolating a high note, high string, and then using the other fingers to mute the lower strings, raking the pick across, and all you hear is that high note. So that's his trademark right there. If you ever do that, you owe that to B.B. King. But you can expand on that a little bit. Right? So what I'm doing there is I'm just saying I want that high note to stand out. So I kind of set it up so that when I hit it, it seems to zing, it pops. Again, like I'm taking a breath. Now this is in my right hand. Right, so I got my hand laying down on the string. Right, so I combine that with the slap and with the pop, and pretty much got it going on. It sounds like a bowl of Rice Krispies. Well, you can have fun with those techniques. This is not technical stuff. You just incorporate that into your playing, and if you hear the sound you like, you just work on it a little bit. Just pick a note and see how much energy can you put into that note, and then listen to the guys that I mentioned, and you'll hear the results. It's spectacular. All right, I'll see you the next time.